Hi again everybody, and welcome back to the Galloway farm. My name is Jared. If you are new here, go ahead and subscribe, see what we've got going on around the farm. And in today's video, we're going to be tackling the 5 largest things that my wife and I learned as we were raising our meat birds. So stay tuned. So the first thing that we learned along the way was that it takes time and that it takes space. We kind of knew this going into it, that it was going to take time and space, but we didn't know to what extent. We signed up for an everyday commitment of taking care of these live birds for no less than 8 weeks, and our birds actually ran a little bit longer. And what that meant is every single day it took time. It took time to feed them. It took time to get their water to them. It took time to move them to the new grass. It took time to care for them if one of them had an issue with its leg or if one of them was getting picked on by the other one. It took time and space to be able to put those in one area and seclude them off from the rest of them, filling their water containers, filling their food troughs. It takes time every single day. So if you're not willing to commit no less than 30 minutes to an hour each and every single day, this might not be for you. But also with time comes space. If it takes time to move them, you've got to have a place to move them. And so that means it's going to take wide open grass, wide open fields to be able to do something like this. Now for us, at our house, we have probably about 3 to 4 acres that are already cleared, and that worked perfectly for us. We didn't go through the whole thing. What we ended up doing was moving the chickens at first across where we wanted our garden spot to be for the upcoming year. The reason we did that is because that's all of that waste that they're creating is actually great fertilizer to start preparing the soil to give nutrients back into our food. So we were really excited to do that. We thought that would be a really great way not to be wasteful, is using their waste for our gain. So we did have to have space for that, and then we ended up moving them to our backyard. And when we started moving them every day, we would move them further away from the shed, and then as it got closer to processing day, we moved them closer and closer and closer to the shed so that they were right there. There was no stress of moving when it came time for processing. So thing number 1 that we learned is you gotta have time and you've got to have the space to be able to pull something like this off. So the second thing that we learned was more an error on my side, or an oversight on my part, and that had to do with the roof. When we built the initial chicken tractor, and I'll link that up in the upper right hand corner of this video, what happened was I just built a flat roof, and I didn't think about if you just put a flat roof on it and a tarp nonetheless without any kind of support system, it's going to sag and it's going to hold water, and eventually, especially if it's built out of PVC, it's going to collapse. So the second thing that I learned is you need some sort of pitch to the roof, and if you're not going to do a pitch, then you've got to have something sturdy across the top, maybe like a corrugated plastic or some tin, something that's lightweight but is still going to give you that rain protection that you need. But I would also recommend going ahead and putting a tarp underneath that, because the tarp not only repelled water, but it also acted as shade for our birds. So during the hot summer months, like when we were raising our birds, they were still able to have a nice amount of shade, and they were able to go get their water in a nice cool place, their food in a nice cool place, as well as find all the crickets and bugs and grass that they could possibly want while they were out on pasture. So I would highly recommend fixing the roof, not like we did it, adding some form of pyramid structure. It would have been really easy to do with the PVC pipe, to just add a 4-way connector on the top with PVC going to each corner, and you could have just laid a tarp over top of it, and that would have been perfectly fine. But some type of water repelling and shade providing roof for the chickens would be best. The third thing that we learned, we had already raised chickens, but they were laying hens. And so it took them 16 weeks to get to the point of laying. They actually ended up staying in our bathroom in a tin tub for quite a while. And so I just wasn't ready for how quickly they grow. You know, you hear they'll be ready in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it happens to be, but you don't realize how fast that's coming along. And so the third thing that we learned is that they grow really fast. And as such, you need to be ready for when that growth takes place. That means you need to have new waterers. The regular waterers that you get at the store for chicks, they won't last very long, especially when you're talking about a bunch of chickens like we did. We bought 60 meat birds for our first time. So we went through a lot of water, and we also bought just one feeder and didn't buy any more. Thankfully, we have a local supply shop that we were able to go to and get those products from fairly easily. But if you didn't have that, you need to plan that out beforehand, because food and water is going to cause them to grow quicker and quicker and faster and faster. The grass that they're going to be on is going to cause them to grow faster and faster. It's going to give you a great product, but at the end of the day, they're going to grow really fast. And in the grand scheme of things, 8 weeks, 10 weeks is not that much time to plan and prepare everything. So go ahead and do that planning, do that preparation beforehand. And also on an honorable mention list of things that we learned along the way, and this was more for me, was listen to your wife. If your wife says, I don't think that's going to work, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and try to fix that problem before it becomes an issue when you have your birds in and you're actually scrambling. So the third thing you want to make sure is that you have ample feeders, ample waterers, and a chicken tractor or a safe place to put them. And also I would add a chicken hospital, some place to quarantine a certain number of chickens if you notice that there was some kind of ailment going across your flock, or if one of them has a leg issue, or if there's an issue of predation or something like that. Have a place to be able to quarantine those and nurse them back to full health. We actually had to do that with a couple of ours. They were having some leg issues. We had some that were getting picked on, and we were actually able to nurse them to health. They had their own food, their own water, and we were able to reintroduce them into the flock later on. So that is thing number 3. Item number 4 that we learned along the way was you need to have some type of dig protection. And when I say dig protection, I don't only mean for predators coming in, but I also mean for your chickens trying to get out. So for the predator portion, predators can dig in. They can reach their paws up under there where we are. Foxes, possums, raccoons, all of those things have a tendency to be able to tunnel under or to reach through and kind of dig up some dirt around there. We actually fixed our chicken tractor very, very easily. We got some flashing, basically just an L shape, and we ended up placing that right underneath the chicken tractor, so it came up one of the sides but also went underneath it part the way, and that stopped all of the predators trying to get in. As far as dig protection goes for the chickens, chickens love to scratch and they love to bed down together, and that can cause depressions and it can cause holes. And for a small chick, you know, if you're putting them out on pasture fairly soon within the first week or two of getting them, what can happen is they scratch, and they're able to have a hole just big enough to get out. Now, as they grow, and remember they grow quickly, that problem resolves itself fairly easily, especially if you do something to keep predators out, like put in the flashing. So the 4th thing that we learned is you need to have some type of dig protection. If you have all of the outside covered, you have the top covered, but something can just as easily dig in and dig out and get those meat chickens, it's not as beneficial to you, to the end product, but it's very beneficial to the predators. And then the 5th thing that we learned along the way was we needed to have a plan in place to deal with force majeure events of nature that just happen. Where we are, we knew that we were getting our chickens early on in June, and that meant here in North Carolina, July starts hurricane season. If we're raising them for 2 months, that's all through June and all through July, hoping to process sometime in early August. That is prime time for hurricanes here in North Carolina, and we didn't have a plan in place to deal with that. So we heard the rumbling that there was a tropical storm coming, and we kind of put something together quickly, but it ended up not going so well. We did put a cabana up to shed some more water. We staked it in the ground. We staked the PVC tractor in the ground, and the PVC tractor didn't move, but the cabana ended up flying off. The wind damage actually ended up taking 3 of our chickens' lives. It was just a very devastating scenario that could have been prevented with better planning on our part. So with an event that's coming like that, you want to do something like have a place that you can put them all, or build a secure enough shelter. They're going to be able to deal with events like that. If you have hurricanes, or if you deal with any type of heavy winds or heavy rains, big thunderstorms, we get those in the afternoons, things like that, you need to be able to deal with it, as well as a place of recovery for the birds. And so from the time our chicken tractor started, you saw what it looked like in the video, and then this is what it looked like when we got done with it, and we were actually moving our birds every single day with it. So there was a lot of changes along the way, a lot of manipulation, things that you find out, but this was time number 1 for us. And so by giving you these 5 things that we learned, our hope and our goal is to better prepare you for when you decide to do your meat birds. As a side note, we got 60 meat birds with the anticipation of processing 50. We knew that we were going to have some losses along the way, number 1, because of inexperience, but also number 2, because things happen. The way these meat birds are, their legs give out on them sometimes, their hearts give out on them sometimes, plus predation looks upon them and sees easy prey, easy food, and can come and get them. So we got 60 with hopes of processing 50, and it ended up working out. We ended up having plenty to go around and to be able to eat off of for our own family, as well as sell some here for the farm. But I say all of that to say, don't go overboard. For your first batch of chickens, you probably don't want to do 1 or 2 or 300. You don't want to have to be moving a bunch of different chicken tractors, building a bunch of different chicken tractors, having to work out feeding and watering, and then you remember that your water hose only reaches so far, then you remember that you've run out of feed and you don't know where to buy it in bulk. All of these big issues can be avoided with simple time and with simple planning and basically with simply listening to your wife. And so that's it, guys. Those are the 5 big things that we learned all along the way. If I think of any more, I will comment them down below, and I'll make sure that that's a pinned comment. Also, if you guys know of anything that I missed that you learned along the way, please feel free to share that information down below with a comment to this video. If you've enjoyed this, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. It really helps out our channel, lets us know what you guys are enjoying, as well as subscribe if you have not already, and we will see you in the next one.